the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I have my laptop and I have the KTFinder, the app installed. The KTFinder is an app that you can find on Kantech's website, and you can download that to your computer, install it, run it as administrator, and you have it going. So here on that, I have the KTFinder installed on my computer. Before you do that, if you have any Entrapass software, Entrapass is the software that runs this. If you have it running, you want to make sure that that program is closed. I'm going to go to, and I'm going to do KTFinder. So, and that is the app right here. So now notice how I mentioned that you're going to need the MAC address of the panel that you're working with. Now, since this is a KT4, then once I come here, I'm going to select the device that I'm looking to connect. So from the list here, I have a list of all the panels. If it was a KT400, I'm going to select a KT400, but if it's a KT4, that is what I'm going to select. So I'm going to select KT4 from the list, and it's going to ask me for the MAC address. And in this case, the MAC address for this panel is 00, which is already giving me 50. F9, and it's going to be 10. It's going to be a delta 2, so D2, and the last one is going to be 3 delta, so 3 delta. Right, so now I've done this, it's going to ask me for what the IP address is. I'm going to type in what the default IP address is because I did force the panel into forced static, and it's going to be a 192.168.1.2. That is what the default is, and I'm going to hit connect. So it's going to send a broadcast and try and connect to the panel. So no KT found. I have to check again to make sure that there is connectivity. This is one of the things that a lot of students, they try and do this and they find out that nothing was happening. So let's go and look at what the IP address of my laptop is. I just want to make sure that that is on the same network as the 192.168.1. So first of all, I'm going to go to control panel, which is right up here. The next thing I want to look for is here. I'm going to go to Network and Sharing Center, which is here. I'm going to double click on that, and it's going to take me here because remember, I'm using a Windows 11 Pro. So on here, I'm going to select Change Adapter Options, which is this one. Click on that, and it's going to open the network adapters that I have. This is the one that I'm connected with my panel right now. That is the network adapter for my Wi-Fi, and this is the one for the Bluetooth. So this is what I have to make modifications to. I'm going to right click on it, go to Properties, and then select Internet Protocol version 4. Click on it, go to Properties, and then this is where I get to change the IP address. Currently, my IP address is on the 16 network, so I want to change this to the 1 network. And based on that, I also want to make sure that since the default IP address is a 1.2, I can put in any other IP, any other number aside the number 2. So I can decide to use the number 4, not to create a conflict. Do I really need a default gateway? No, I don't need a default gateway. So I can clear that and I can say OK for this. I'm using the 4 because there's just a direct connection between my laptop and the panel. There is nothing else connected to this system. If I was connected to a switch that has multiple things, then there was a chance that I could create a network conflict without having to check. So most of the times, if you want to program any of the Kantech panels or any other panel, just make sure you have a direct connection from your laptop to that panel so you don't encounter any problems. Once I'm done, I'm going to close and minimize this. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to the KTFinder and I'm going to try and connect again. So it's sending a broadcast and trying to see if, so this is what happened. Because now I changed the IP address on my laptop to match the one of the Kantech KT4, I've been able to establish connectivity now. At this point, there are a few things that you have to know. This usually you use it during tech support. If you have to call into tech support, they might ask you a few other things. But knowing here that it's going to show you what your MAC address is here, and this was the MAC address that you put in, the Entrapass IP address. Now, what is the Entrapass IP address? This is the IP address that the panel is going to look for on your network for the Kantech Entrapass software. There are a few things that we have to know. Before you program any panel, you have to know the IP address of the computer that houses the software that the panel is going to connect to. For the purpose of this lab, we're going to use the IP address of our Entrapass computer to be a 192.168.22.2. So what we want to do with this panel is that we want to change this first panel that we're going to use to be a 192.168.22.10. That's what we're going to do for here. So first of all, I'm going to put the IP address of that Entrapass computer. So here I'm going to put that IP address 192.168.22.2. So when this panel comes online, it is going to be looking for this IP address so that it can connect to it for the software. This is a very important step that has to be done. You can also use the domain name as well as the DNS. These, if you're not sure, you have to talk to your IT guy. They're going to provide you with this information. The next thing you want to do here is under Ethernet configuration. There are two ways that you can do it. You can set it onto DHCP to try and go onto the network and find a DHCP server for an IP address to be issued to this panel. For the purposes of this lab, we are going static IP address mode. So I'm going to select to use the following IP addresses. And what I'm going to put here is the IP address that I want to assign to this panel, this KT4 panel that we have. And I want that IP address to be a 22.10. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to change this IP address to a 192.168.22.10. Right? If I ever want this to be routable, and this should be found on the network and the internet, then probably I have to put a gateway. But if it's just going to be localized, I don't have to put anything in here. I don't really have to put the gateway router or the DNS settings. I don't have to. But if this is going to go out of the local area network, then definitely you have to put what your gateway IP address is. For the protocols, we have two. We have the user datagram protocol, the UDP, and we have the TCP. I always like to put it on the TCP, and I don't change anything for the port. I leave the port as 18810. That is default. So these are some of the things you need to know on this one. And once that is done, I'm going to click OK. Once I do that and you look on the panel, you're going to see the light blinking so fast to let me know. One other thing that I also like to do is I like to run the command prompt. So I pull up the CMD and I'm going to run that alongside the Entrapass, the KTFinder. So I'm going to put the KTFinder here and I'm going to run a ping on here. So currently you can see that this ping that I'm putting here, which I'm going to ping is PING space 192.168.1.2. And I want a continuous ping, so I put a space -T like that and I hit enter. This is what the current IP address on the panel is, right? So I can see there's a continuous ping on that panel. There's a continuous communication. But at this point, since I want to change that IP address to the 22.10, once I have put this in here, the moment I hit OK, I'm going to lose the ping that I'm having here. So let's take a look. I'm going to click OK. The light is going to flash. The reset is going to go, and that ping that I'm having here is going to change. So I just hit OK, and we're going to take a look. So the blue light is flashing, and once that flashing is done, I'm going to lose connectivity. I've been logged out of the KT4, the KTFinder, and we can see that I'm timing out from this point. So what is happening now? I cannot communicate with the panel anymore. There are two ways that I can also communicate with it. I have to go back and change the IP address of my laptop. Let's take a look at something without me changing the IP address. So I'm going to press Ctrl+C. That is going to terminate my ping process. So let's take a look at that. That terminates my ping command. And I'm going to try and ping the new IP address that I assigned. So it's going to be a ping space 192.168.22.10. And I'm going to do a continuous ping. So it's going to be space -t. And then I'm going to hit enter. So now I'm trying to ping the 22 network. But you find out that the request is timing out. But if I go back to control panel, which I have minimized here, and I select the exact network controller that I want to change, which is this one, and I right click on it, go to properties, I select Internet Protocol version 4, and I go to properties. Now I can change this to a different number, so which is on the 22 network, but the last number should be anything except 10, because my panel is on the 10 network. If I make this on the 10, there's going to be conflict. So I'm just going to leave it as 22.4. And I'm going to say OK and close. And I'm just going to minimize this for a second. Now we're going to take a close look at the ping. I'm supposed to have some response from the panel once I change my IP address to match the new IP address of the panel. Now I'm getting my response back. So it's now a 192.168.22.10. Just means that the panel has accepted the new IP address that I assigned to it. For me to confirm that, I can come in here and put the IP address at that. But before I do that, let's take a look. .2. If I click connect now, it's going to tell me that there's nothing. It wouldn't be able to find anything. KT4 not found. However, if I change it to the 22.10, I would be able to connect to the panel after it sends a broadcast, and it takes me in. So this is just one of the ways that you can change the IP address on the Kantech KT4 panel. So now I'm in, I can ping it, and I can take it from there. This just goes to show that my panel has been programmed and it is ready to be added to the Kantech Entrapass software, which is going to be the next video that we're going to be talking about. So again, what I have to emphasize on the panel is we can start to look at the heartbeat. The heartbeat is red and is blinking 4. So the 4 red heartbeats is just telling me that the panel is in the hard reset state. So I hope you learned something new about working with Kantech's new KT4 panel. It's a very nice panel, very easy to work with. I hope you learned something new and you enjoyed watching this video. Next up is how to add this panel to the Entrapass software. Until then, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.